What is up, everyone? Movie Wayne back again with another collaboration video, and today I've got John Perry on the channel from the channel Mondo, Chelloveck Movies. I'm sure some of you might follow him, some of my subscribers I know watch him, and he's got a great channel over there. And he has actually provided my intro music that you might remember, my little 4-second intro. John provided me with that music, and some of my background music from my top 10 videos or whatever. John also provided that for me, which I'm very, very thankful for. But first of all, John, how are you? And do you want to tell everyone a little bit about your channel and what you do over there?
Jordan, all right?
Right.
Thanks for the opportunity to do this. I'm really excited to do it. And Mondo Chelloveck Movies is a channel that I started on the 1st of June 2020. I've been wanting to start it for a long time, but obviously you put it off, you think, will I? And when I did, I've never looked back. Actually, I've really enjoyed this with the thanks to the community as well. They welcome me into this. I do plan, well, I do the same as a lot of channels. I show off what I've got at the end of the month. I do hauls, I do reviews of things. I talk about what my favorite 4Ks are. I'm big into 4Ks at the minute. I want to do more videos about 4Ks, why I got into 4Ks, what they're all about in my life, and also just more of this sort of content to be, and especially collaborations, which is the first one I've ever done. So this is quite new to me, and I just want to get more into this sort of world of YouTube, which I'm really enjoying.
Yeah. So this is John's first time. So go easy on him in the comments. I'm sure he'll be fine. I've watched this channel for a very long time, and you know, I think I watched it from near the start when you started, and I think it's brilliant. Your knowledge on movies and actually what 4K picture quality and stuff, you go into detail about some of that. I find it quite fascinating, to be honest. It's a great channel. It really is. I love watching you, mate. And some of your videos are like 30 minutes long. I watched them all 30 minutes of it. So yeah, it's a great channel, and I highly suggest, if you're watching this, to get over there if you haven't already and subscribe to Mondo Chelloveck Movies. I will leave the link down below, of course. Get over there, you will not regret it. But basically, we're here today to talk about our favourite acting performances, or our favourite character roles, or whatever you want to call it. And we've picked 5 each. This is usually the way to do it. You know, I'll pick one, and then John will pick one, and we'll just talk about 5 minutes each one, and why we like this character in this role. Sorry, this actor in this character role. And yeah, this was actually John's idea. So is this, what would you say, John, the 5 you picked? Are these, would you say these are your best 5 roles of all time, or just 5 of your favourites, or 5 that came to mind at first? How come you pick these 5?
Well, what I've tried to do with this one is I've tried to pick them from obviously ones that have really had an impact on my life, or ones that I've saw and thought, wow, this performance just stands out from other movies that are maybe similar to it, or there might be ones that I was surprised with. And so the ones I've picked here are ones that are quite mainstream for most of them, but also I think that their performances just leap out. And if anybody hasn't seen these films, most of them are quite well known, but if you haven't seen them, I do urge you to go and check them out, because you will have a great time with it, especially watching these particular performances that just elevate this film into another level. So I remember there was a video that you put out a while ago that was talking about your favourite actors in general. Now that influenced me to sort of think about, well, I like actors obviously, but I couldn't think of any actors that I could like pull out from other people. But I thought performances kind of stood out to me. Maybe some actors that I don't really like in other things, the performance in this is just extraordinary. So that's why I sort of picked this theme that we talked about.
Yeah, I know it sort of does say what it says on the tin, really, doesn't it? I mean, like the 5 I've gone with, I think these probably, I wouldn't say they're my top 5 ever, but they are 5 real standout ones for me. I'd say they're probably in my top 10. Like 5 of them are probably my top 10, but these are ones that have had a big impact on me as well. And you know, some of them have make me rewatch the movie a lot as well because of the character. But basically, you know, I think I'm going to start with probably the most popular one, and I'll probably save me best till last, like what I think the best performance is. But I'll start with the most popular one that everyone will know. But what order are you going to go in, John? Is there any order that you've got? Or
well, I'm gonna choose the same type of format as you. I'm going to start with a popular person, a popular performance, and then I'm going to go to my favourite one in the middle. I'm going to put the ones that are kind of put in no particular order in the middle, but they're all stand out for me. Yes, so similar to yourself.
Right, and I think we have seen all these movies, haven't we? Well, I've seen all the ones you've picked anyway. Yep.
Yes, and I went and watched. There was one standout one, which I'll go into a little bit more then when you talk about it. But I've got a lot to say about this particular film that you did, one of the ones you've chosen. But what a revelation! That's all I can say.
Okay, I think I know which one you're on about, but we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to start with the most popular, acting performance. I think it was from 2000 and was it 2008? Yeah, I think it was 2008. And this is probably a lot of people's favourite performance, and that is Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. Now, I think The Dark Knight is one of the greatest movies ever made. It's in my top 10 of all time. But the main reason for that is because of Heath Ledger as the Joker. Now, I remember he got announced, and I was like, Heath Ledger is the Joker? What's all that about? Wasn't he in that film, like 10 Things I Hate About You and A Knight's Tale? And why is he the Joker? That's such a big character. And I was just absolutely blown away. I remember sitting in the cinema, and every scene that he'd come on, I was just got excited. Like, oh, there's another Joker scene. I can't believe it. So excited to see what he does here. And that was probably my favourite ever cinema experience. One, because of the movie, and like I said, two, because of him. He's just absolutely amazing. And I feel sorry for most actors these days who've got to do a Joker performance. Now, I know Joaquin Phoenix was brilliant in the Joker movie. However, that is a different type of Joker to me. I feel like that's what before Heath Ledger was, if you get me. Like, that's the character before what Heath Ledger became. I know they're not linked, but they're two different type of Jokers, really, I feel. And I just love the way Heath Ledger is having such a good time in this movie. He's just, like, even in the movie, he's doing it for fun, isn't he? I mean, have you seen The Dark Knight, John? Are you a fan, or you're not as big a fan as me?
No, massively. The Dark Knight for me, and I can echo everything you were saying about the original announcement for Heath Ledger. I remember me and Holgoss73 was a good friend of mine. We were actually talking at work, and he said, have you seen who's going to be the new Joker? Because obviously Jack Nicholson was the Joker back in the day, even though you would know that some other people would take that role on eventually. But I remember thinking to myself when I saw it, and even when I saw his makeup, I thought, this is going to be an absolute disaster. But as everybody knows, he proved everybody wrong, and he put in a performance which was, well, it stole the show for the film. The film was more about the Joker performance than the Batman performance, which you couldn't believe at the time, but you were more interested in seeing the Joker on the screen than Batman, which is just crazy to say, but now he put in a stunning performance. Brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, like, he's probably one of the greatest villains of all time, and he had a lot to live up to there. And there's so many scenes in this movie where it's just amazing. I mean, I love the bank robbery at the start, obviously the opening scene. When he first reveals that, he takes the mask off and reveals himself, and then you don't see him again for about 20-25 minutes. He's like, I wonder what the Joker's up to. Where is he? The magic trick scene where he just puts the guy's head through the pencil and stuff. Yeah. But he's just having a great time, and when he's dressed up as the nurse and stuff like that, and he's just really quite funny in the movie. But it's a sinister comedic side, isn't it? I mean, I just think he nailed it perfectly, to be honest. And you can't forget the scene with him and Batman in the jail cell. I mean, them two just basically having a conversation, and it leads to ultimately Batman having to rush out because he's already planted these traps everywhere. And he even says in the movie, he's basically doing it for fun. He burns all the money he's found and everything. And it's just, like I said, it replicates Heath Ledger just having a good time here. So I just love it. There's so much I could say. When I said Heath Ledger, the Joker, I was struggling where to start, to be honest, because it just is a magnificent performance. And sadly, he died shortly after the film, and I feel like he probably would have gone on to be the biggest actor in the world off this performance, or one of them. I mean, everyone would have wanted him in his movies, and it's such a shame. And I know he was in hotels practicing his laugh and all that, so he was definitely dedicated to the role. So, yeah, is anything else to say on the Joker, John? Or?
Well, actually, funny enough, when I first heard about the Joker, in essence, and he was talking about how he was formulating the Joker character, and he said he watched a load of interviews from a singer called Tom Waits. Now, if you listen to Tom Waits when he's talking, he's got a really gruff voice, and he's got a really strange way of like delivering stories. And when you watch Heath Ledger performance, you can see Tom Waits' interview style technique in that performance. I mean, there's a lot of other things. He's went and got a lot of things from different parts of wherever he's got this character from. But the whole Tom Waits thing, for me, being a big fan of Tom Waits' music, I thought that kind of got me interested in it and thought, well, this might be something different as opposed to just somebody who I originally thought was going to be really miscast. But he just brought everything together and he pulled out the performance of his lifetime. Obviously, it's a short lifetime. And it just beckons to think, well, what could have happened in the future? What would have happened in the next part of the Batman? Because I'm sure he was going to make some kind of appearance in there, you would think.
Yeah.
And it's just a big shame that never happened, but at least we have this performance. And I've met anybody yet who has said they didn't like Heath Ledger's performance in that film. Even people who aren't really Batman fans will always get something out of that film. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right there. I don't think I've heard anyone ever say that they didn't like him. And they didn't kill him off at the end of the film. So I think Nolan might have had him in mind to appear a little bit, even if it was just for a bit in the second one, because I bet he was blown away by his performance as well when he was watching him act. Okay, John, that is Heath Ledger. I think we've covered him, and I didn't know that about Tom Waits, is it? I didn't know that, to be honest. I'll have to look at a few interviews and stuff.
If you do see it, if you do see some, there's plenty of interviews knocking about of Tom Waits. He does interviews on shows. Now, a funny sort of thing that might be linked is that Tom Waits is renowned when he does interviews for not telling the truth about his life.
Right.
He always tells stories about his life. He tells people when he was born, where he was born, they're always wrong in his interviews. Now, that gets back to the fact of the Joker when he's asked about how he's got his scars. He never gives the same answer twice. Now, I wonder, just might be me just thinking this, was he taking a leaf out of Tom Waits' book and deliberately telling lies about his particular deformity or what happened to it? Is it on the back of the Tom Waits legendary thing of never, ever telling the truth? So, I don't know.
I think that's a very good point, because he never actually does say. He always makes a story up for each time, doesn't he? So I never quite got that at first when I watched the film, but maybe not. Like, obviously I get it now. He's telling lies on purpose, but I didn't know that might be the inspiration for it. You might be right there, John. Okay. Yeah. All right. Should we move on to your first pick then? That is the Joker, Heath Ledger. Fantastic performance. So what have you gone for first, John? Your most popular one, is it?
Yeah, I've gone for a popular one, and it's going to be 1975's Jaws. Now, this film for me, as most people I've watched on YouTube, I can't see anybody saying really too much bad things about it because it is quite frankly a masterpiece. And the standout role for me in amongst this film of just standout roles is Robert Shaw, who plays Quint. I've just found out today actually his first name is Sam Quint. Right. I never knew. I looked it up on Internet Movie Database, but anyway. But his performance is this sort of sea, this person who's lived in the sea, and he actually makes you think. I like a performance when you look at it and you think, I really think that person is that person. Some people say that they own the role and all that, but I think that Quint delivered this performance where you thought he was this actual sort of bloke who was really at one with the sea, and he killed many sharks, and he was the man to do the job. He knew everything about this. Obviously, didn't know everything about this shark because it was something he'd never seen before. But I just think as well in Jaws, my favourite scene from any movie, and I've talked about this before, is when Quint's on the boat and he's setting up the music's throbbing, that there's a shark somewhere, and he knows that as well. But nobody on the boat knows this. So he gets his line and he gets his rod and he gets everything set up for this. And it's just the best scene in the movie for me. It's just it's only on for about 4 minutes, but I just love it. But his performance going from somebody who is really sort of he doesn't believe that these other characters can put anything in the mix. Where he thinks he's going to go, they're going to be absolutely useless to him. But he has to realize in the end they were actually probably everyone had their own little thing that they brought to this boat scene. And for me, from that film, over the years, I've always liked his performance, but it's always grown. And every time I watch it, and I've watched it countless and countless times, I'm so, a bit like Heath Ledger, I'm waiting for him coming into the film, even though he's not in it the most in the film. I do think that his part is just such a standout. And obviously, Steven Spielberg said that his when he was doing his talk about the boat when they were the Indianapolis and they were in the water and the sharks came for them. I mean, that's, you can't take your eyes off the screen when he's saying that. And Steven Spielberg said it was his greatest bit of film that he filmed of anybody, acting. So for that alone is something to behold. So so I can't get enough of this character that's played. I can't imagine anybody else doing this role. Yeah.
I watched Jaws just before Christmas because I hadn't seen it for years, and I know there's a lot of YouTubers who say it's one of their favourite films, yourself included. I mean, I think Lauren from Lauren's Collection is always mentioning it. There's a lot of YouTubers who love Jaws, and I hadn't seen it for like 10 years, and I was like, I'm going to rewatch this, and I could not stop thinking about it for a whole week. And I actually put that on Twitter. I actually said, I can't stop thinking about this film. And someone said about Robert Shaw, and I said, he's the best character. He's the best character in the movie, and it's full of great characters. So when you've got a movie full of great characters and you're the standout, you're doing something right. I love his introduction into this movie. I think they're just talking about what they're going to do, and the bit of back and forth between the mayor and Chief Brody, and I think he just screeches his hand along the chalkboard, and it's a horrible sound, but he gets everyone's attention. He's just like, I'll catch this fish for you, and it's like, wow, this man knows what to do. He's full of confidence in him. But like you said, you don't turn to him till the second half of the movie. I do feel like the second half of the film is a little bit different to the first. I don't know if that's just me, but I feel like it's a different type of film. Obviously the same story and all that, but he is definitely the standout for that second half by far. I mean, you mentioned that story there. That's quite a scary moment, actually. He's only telling a story, but it's quite sinister and creepy, isn't it? I mean, I think that was like one of the creepiest moments I've ever seen in a film because it's a horrible story he's telling. But I think Spielberg's got a really good point there when he says that. But I should have mentioned really we're going to have spoilers here, but I will put it at the start of the video anyway. You've probably seen it if you've clicked on this video now. But I felt really bad at the end. I didn't want him to die basically, and it's a bit of a grim end for him. But I don't think I think maybe I wouldn't say he deserved it, but maybe that's the shark's way of getting back at him because he's been hunting them all his life or whatever. But it's a great performance. Sadly, we lost him quite young as well, didn't we?
I don't think it was too long after the Jaws finished. Actually, I think it was only a couple of years after that, and I think he died in his early 50s. I think, which is a big shame because he's great in everything I've seen him in. He's great, but this one for me, Robert Shaw is just next level.
Yeah, I think maybe a 10 out of 10 character and a 10 out of 10 film, maybe. All right then, John. Anything else to say on Robert Shaw and Jaws, or?
Well, actually, funny enough, you were talking about the chalkboard scene when he's scraping his things, which is a great introduction for him. It kind of sets him up for the film, even though he sort of goes off and you don't see him for a while until he comes back on the boat, and you've got a good handle on what he's all about just from that little introduction of himself. But there was a bit that was cut out, which you were going to see him introduced earlier on in the film, and I'm glad they didn't put it in because I think he wouldn't have been introduced in the right way. He went into a shop to buy some bait, and he was sort of taking the mick out of somebody in the shop, and he was like coming across like a cool person. And I don't know why it was took out, but I like the fact that it was gone. So the first point you saw him was of that time we were talking about with the chalkboard, which is another standout thing. Did he come up with that? Because apparently he come up with the Indianapolis speech himself, which made me think that if he was thinking about doing how did he introduce it, I don't know if that was in the script or whatever, but it was a perfect way to introduce this character. Yeah.
I must admit, John, like I said, I haven't watched it for like 10 years. I'm not really clued up on Jaws as much as some people. I know some people have it as their favourite film and all that, but I'd have to look into that, to be honest. But I'm actually glad now that you've said that he took that scene out, because he probably wouldn't have been as much of a likeable character. I mean, maybe that's the initial thing they were trying to go for, make him unlikable. And then when they cut that scene out and they've probably gone a different way about it, maybe they've just improvised while they're making it. I don't know. But he's definitely, for me, he was the best character in that movie anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so shall we move on then, or do you want to? Yeah. Okay. I'll go with. Right, I'm going to go with a movie I watched on New Year's Day, and it's the first time I'd ever seen this movie, and it is Whiplash, and I'm going to go with the standout performance of J.K. Simmons. Now, it's very hard to describe how I felt about this character in this movie, because I'd heard about him and I heard he'd give a great performance and stuff like that. But I didn't expect to be this blown away by him. I hated him. I hated him, what he was doing, the way he was bullying everyone and stuff like that. And in the third act, the start of the third act, he sort of explains his actions and you sort of understand why he's doing it. Even though you don't agree with it. And he makes it a very unlikable, a guy you love to hate, if you get me. But I just think, you know, the way he acts in this movie is brilliant. I mean, the way everyone is scared of him, he commands the screen with his presence, and it's not just to the characters in the movie, but it's to the audience as well. His screen presence, it's unbelievable in this, and I think this is one of the best performances of all time. I just absolutely think he's amazing in this movie, and just someone you, like I said, you love to hate. What do you think of Whiplash, John? Have you seen it?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, I first got Whiplash many years ago on Blu-ray, because basically it's a film about drumming. Well, obviously I like drumming. I play the drums, so I thought, right, you don't see many movies about drumming. So I got the movie, and I realised very early on it was about jazz drumming. So I turned it off, right? But because I don't particularly do jazz drumming, so it was a thing that put me off, because I don't really understand jazz drumming, because it seems to be a little bit hit and miss, not hit and miss, but not in time anyway. So years later, I went back because I heard so many things about. I didn't even see. I turned it off before even J.K. Simmons was in it. To be honest, I turned off right at the start. But I rebought it, and I got it, and I watched it, and I was just blown away by this. The whole film itself is great. Actually, I got it because it's by the same director as La La Land. So I went back to it, revisiting, and because of that, I thought, well, I'll give it another chance. And I was glad I did, because the performance is just unreal. I thought, I've never met anybody who I utterly despised straight away. It was just the way he was so cruel and so nasty. And the fact is, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to get the best out of people. But the fact he was such that sort of like person who had no time for anybody else at all. And I've never been so drawn to a character that's so awful, but you kind of understand them to a certain extent. But I did. Obviously, the whole film's a great film, but that performance, to get that drum part right, was just something I couldn't believe I was seeing. It was really good.
Yeah, I was meant to introduce that segment of the video with, you know, because you're a drummer yourself and stuff. But yeah, I was going to say, is it that hard? But like you said, jazz drumming is different, so it's not. Is it not as hard, or?
Jazz drumming for me is weird, because it's not in time. Well, it is in time. It's in time with its own stuff. It's kind of, you just make up on the spot. But for the fact of the fella who played the part of the drummer, what was his name again? Was it Miles?
Miles Teller.
Yeah, Miles Teller. He did, because you can really tell when somebody can't drum in a film. If he couldn't have drummed in the film, it would have made the film utterly unwatchable for me. But the fact that he could drum was another thing that I thought. He's obviously learned his parts. Now, the fact of jazz drumming is harder than rock drumming, for instance. Rock drumming is straightforward to a certain extent, but the jazz drumming is something that's kind of real up there. So I understood the fact of, if I got past the fact that I'm not a great fan of jazz, and I did connect with the whole film. But yes, jazz drumming isn't easy whatsoever. So nothing on that film is easy. That you've got to really understand that the people who did that, who made that film, the people who are in them bands and all that, when they're playing the right stuff and they've had to play them in the right orders, they were really good at what they were doing. Probably more than it would be with, like, say, like School of Rock type films.
Yeah.
So that itself, it's to watch that was quite good. But yes, it's not easy at all.
Yeah, because like I knew, like, I don't know much about drumming and stuff, but I knew Miles Teller had probably practiced for a long time before making this film, because, like you said, it probably wouldn't have worked. But staying on J.K. Simmons there, I mean, you're saying you understand them and stuff like that, but there's a moment in the movie where a student's actually killed himself because of him, and I just thought it was mad the way they were all terrified of him. I mean, I was terrified of him watching it, to be honest.
Oh yeah.
But at the end, but like at the end, you sort of, even though you sort of love to hate the character, I personally, right, I was sort of like that at the screen, wanting Miles Teller to just come and do his own thing and show him that he is good enough and stuff. I was really rooting for Miles Teller by the end because of how horrible of a character J.K. Simmons is. I don't think I've ever rooted for a person that much in a while, but because J.K. Simmons was that terrible of a character, I just wanted him to prove him wrong. And obviously he gets run over at one point, doesn't he? And J.K. Simmons just doesn't even care, basically. But this is kind of related to the Heath Ledger thing. I know it's a totally different character, but what I'm saying is, when Miles Teller finally leaves the school in the middle of the movie, J.K. Simmons has been fired, I was just like, oh, please don't tell me he's not going to be in the rest of the film. Because I knew there was like 45 minutes left, and then obviously he comes back, he meets him in the bar and stuff. So I was so happy. I don't think the film would have been as good if he was hardly in the second half. They made the right decision by bringing him back straight away. So I thought that was a great decision. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about Whiplash because I've never actually spoke about it on my channel as well. And obviously this is a great performance, so this was a good time to mention it. But I just thought it was a brilliant film, and like, he makes the movie for me. I mean, Miles Teller is great, but without J.K. Simmons, I think that movie probably would have been half as good, maybe. I don't know. But there you go. I don't think there's too many actors who could have done it that good, put it that way. All right, John, anything else to say on J.K. Simmons? Or
I think if you think about it, and I've never been in a similar situation than that. When I've been in bands, you just set your drums up, you just play along to what they're doing. They've been very sort of like... there's been no great, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But I can understand, as well as what you were saying, with if he hadn't have been like that, this film would not have worked. I mean, it would just been somebody going to try and play the drums. You would have got to play the drums as well as you could for this really hard piece of music. And then he would have done it. And that would have been the end of the film, which would have been, it would have sort of made it like a TV movie of no description. But the fact that they put this character in made it just elevated to this, what it is. And I'm glad I give it a second chance. Imagine if I hadn't, I would have really missed out.
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I was missing out because I hadn't watched it for that. Everyone else had seemed to see it. But I was just going to say as well, the one little quote that I remember what he says is, I don't think there's two worse words in the English dictionary or the English language than good job. Because he wants the best out of everyone, doesn't he? All right then, John, there's J.K. Simmons off Whiplash. Do you want to move on to your second choice then of this video? Okay.
The second one I'm going to choose is going to be Conrad Veidt from the 1928 film The Man Who Laughs. Now this film had come into my mind on the back of probably what most people hear about. It's the fact that the Joker's initial sort of look was manufactured off the look of Conrad Veidt in this film. Now that was what I heard about it. Now I assumed, as I think most people did, was it's going to be an out-and-out horror film. And it's going to have some kind of Joker-type character in it, but couldn't have been more wrong. It's more like a melodrama, but that you might be disappointed by the fact of thinking, well, I'm expecting some kind of crazy horror film, and I'm getting something that's completely different from that. But in honesty, it made it better. The fact is that this person, Conrad Veidt, who had this really hard makeup to wear for the whole time of this film, and made this character so you had, even though he's got like this grin etched into his face and he can't get rid of it with his eyes, he can sort of convey like deep sorrow, happiness, and pain, suffering, and elation. And I just couldn't get by the fact of this film being such an all-rounded, especially with it being silent. And I did think that this fella who I saw in another film called Dr. Caligari's Cabinet, which is a great film, but he doesn't really play anybody who's probably more like a zombie in that film. I just couldn't get over this performance in this film, for me, which is a good film. Without his performance in it, would a bit like Jaws and all the films we're talking about, would have actually struck the same chord with us if it was just your average person who did it. I just can't. It's the way he conveys everything with his eyes, because he can't do it with his mouth, which makes this a great standout performance for me.
Yeah, I mean, I know, going by your videos, and you've spoke about this on the channel before, that this was the first time watch for you last year, and it was the first time I ever watched it because Eureka brought it out on Blu-ray. I think that's why we both watched it. But the other reason I wanted to watch it was because it is based on the Joker and the Bob Kane based that character on this character. And same as you, I thought it was going to be a horror movie. He's got the horror look about him, a creepy look, but that's the whole point of the movie, because I think what you nailed it there with the eyes. It's the eyes tell a different story to what his grin tells him. And I think that's such an important thing for the character. And this is going to be different to every other character on the list, because this is a silent movie, of course. He doesn't speak in the film, but he tells the whole story with his face. And I think the best way to put this and nail it down is by saying silence is deafening, if you get me. Because he just does everything by his actions and his face. And yeah, I mean, he's gonna be like a bit of a character that we're going to talk about in a bit. But for me, I felt like kind of sad for him. I sympathised with him. I rooted for him. I wanted this relationship with him and Dia to happen. I think her name's Dia, is it? Or Dyer or something. I was just... Go on, sorry, John.
Sorry, yes, Dia. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just so invested in this couple's relationship. And there's one moment in the movie where this other woman sort of wants to marry him, I think. And you're like, no, don't stay with Dia. And, she understands you and stuff. And I just felt so sorry for the guy, the way everyone's sort of pointing and laughing at him and stuff like that. And I just really, really rooted for him. I got behind him as a character. And I just thought it was an amazing performance for a silent movie. It is. I don't know if I'll ever see a better performance in a silent movie. But then again, I haven't seen many silent films, but I will be very surprised because he was fantastic. Yeah. So it's a hard one to carry on with, like, for me to say it now, because it's such a silent film. But it's one of them films you just have to watch for yourself and see it for yourself, because it's so, like, I'm going to be planning on reviewing this on the channel, and it's just like, I don't really... It's hard because you just got to see it for yourself. It's one of them films. But is there anything else you've got to say on Conrad Beat? Is it? Sorry.
Yeah. It's, well, actually, the whole performance, you've touched on a great point there, that it's a silent film. Now, I think that a lot of people, including myself, way back when, would turn the film on, it would be silent, and immediately turn it off, because I'd say, what on earth can this give me? Well, this film, probably, like you say, out of the silent films I've watched, it's given me the most out of it. And I've got that probably from Conrad Veidt's performance, predominantly, the fact that he could give you all these emotions with just the look of his eyes. And you could see, the fact is, when he's got like a scene where he's really, really heartbroken, and you can tell by his eyes, he's crying and he's got this pain and suffering in his eyes. Yet he's got a huge smile on his face. But you can see past that. I don't know many actors that could pull that off, if I'm honest. And that's going back there. So in 1928, he's given a performance, which is something that maybe actors these days would struggle to do. So it shows you that there was a lot of things to be, you could get out of silent films that maybe won't translate into modern day films. And yes, there's no speaking in it, but to me, his performance doesn't need any words.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because it's 1928 and we're talking about his performance nearly 100 years later, so it shows how good it is. And in a way, he's probably got it more harder to get his performance across without speaking. It's probably harder for him when you think about it than all the other actors we're talking about, really. I mean, I don't know if it's the best performance on this list, but he's definitely probably had the hardest job out of them all because he hasn't got much to work with, really. He's only got his facial expressions and stuff. So, yeah. I think that was a really good pick, John. And I'm happy you picked that one, actually, because I thought it was a fantastic movie. If you haven't seen The Man Who Laughs, definitely give it a go. If you've never seen a silent film before, start with this one. Is there anything else to say, John, or should we move on? Or
no, that's it for that one. Great film. As you say, if you haven't seen a silent film, this is a great place to start.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go with Linda Hamilton now. I think she's the one female I've picked on this list. My favourite heroine of all time. I know people say Ellen Ripley is, but for me, it's Linda Hamilton. What a badass she is in Terminator 2. Like, what I like about the character is she had to adapt so much from the first movie. In the first movie, she's just this little innocent waitress. And we see it towards the end of the film where she's starting to arc a little bit. But in this movie, she is just, so tough, isn't she? I mean, the movie is about the Terminator, who's the big hero and stuff, but I think she's just as good as a character, as a hero in this movie as Arnold is. I just love the three of them. Like, you got Emma Furlong, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and her. I just think it's a great little trio to lead the film. And it just shows how tough she is when she's breaking out of that mental institution. I mean, it doesn't look like somewhere you could actually break out of, but she's got like 10 guards chasing her at one point. And I mean, even without Arnold and John Connor's help, the Terminator and John Connor's help, she was still probably going to get out of there. So I feel like she's another 10 out of 10 character and another 10 out of 10 film, to be honest. She's a very determined character. She is what one main focus is to stop Judgment Day. And I like that about her. She's just fully focused on one thing and she will get it done no matter what. Like I said, breaking out the mental institution and stuff. But what do you think of Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, John? Are you a fan? Or?
Yes, I'm a fan, and I do agree with you. What you say on the fact is that a character, the same character in Terminator 1, is nothing really to what she's like in Terminator 2. And actually, she had to be different in Terminator 2 because she wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes if she had the same sort of like innocence that she had in the first one. So it was great to move her on in a life, and also as well, she became believable in that role. It's not as if you thought you didn't get her, because obviously she trained for it. You could tell she was physically, it's not as if she just said, oh, I'm a real warrior now. She actually looked like a warrior. And the way that she sort of dealt with all the guards in the mental institution, she had them all, so you knew she was a fighter, and she'd give herself that sort of training because you knew what she had to do. And I did like the fact that she couldn't trust the Terminator, even though the good Terminator, was sent back to help her. She didn't like that at all through the whole film, most of it anyway. And I did appreciate the fact of that whole distrust through the film was quite a good little sort of addition to the plot. The fact that you've got this sort of development of their characters, which was good to have. You couldn't have a Terminator 2 being exactly the same as Terminator 1. Yeah. It just wouldn't have worked. And I did appreciate the fact that her character was believable as well. And I did think that she gave a great performance. And if you think about in Terminator 1, it was a good performance, but she didn't really be a standout performance for that. You tend more to look at the Terminator and Kyle Reese as the people, and she was just like the kind of added on the side sort of like character. She came into her own, and she kind of was the main focus of Terminator 2. Yeah,
I agree with that. I think James Cameron actually done this with a few things in the Terminator 2. I mean, I will stay on Sarah Connor in a second, but he done it with the villain. Basically, he could have went for much bigger robot and much bigger than Arnold, but no, he went for the totally opposite, and like a little skinny guy who looked like he was looking around like a cat and stuff. And turned out to be a genius stroke. And I think he'd done it with Linda Hamilton's character as well. Like you said, she is physically tough in this movie. You can tell, she's really put the muscle on basically, and to land this role, to lead this role the way she does. And I just think it's a bit of a shame that we didn't see Linda Hamilton in a lot more things after this. I think she'd done Dante's Peak, and that was about it. And then she appeared in Frasier a few times, but I don't remember her going on to do anything. And it's a shame, really. Obviously, she's in the new Terminator as well. But it's a bit of a shame because she's such a good actress, especially in this movie. She's absolutely amazing. And it just baffles me. I mean, maybe she didn't want to act no more. I don't know. But I thought this would have led her on to be in more important roles and stuff. So, yeah, I think that's a great point as well. She doesn't trust the Terminator. But it brings me on to another scene in the movie. She's just going to kill that Miles Dyson in front of his whole family. And she doesn't care because she knows it's for the greater good and stuff. I just think she's a brilliant character. And she's in charge, really. I mean, you've got John Connor, you've got Arnold, but she sort of tried to take charge all the time and, doing it her way. Ultimately, it does end up with John making the main decision at the end, but I feel like she sort of tells these two what to do, and that's what I like about her, basically. But I just think it's a brilliant performance and my favourite heroine of all time. So, anything else on Linda Hamilton, John, or should we move on to your next pick?
Well, it's an interesting fact that you made, like an interesting point that you talked about there. The fact that when you see somebody who delivers a performance like that, and you think, right, you'd be interested to see what they're going to do next, and it just nothing happened. It was really weird, and it's probably, we would think maybe 5 or 6 years later, you would think, hang on a minute, what did she do? Because you can normally say that people who delivered a standout performance will either get the chance to do more, and they might fall. They might just be known for that one performance, and they might falter on other things, or they may go on to have a stellar career. But hers just seemed to just dwindle into like literally nothing for quite a while, which was a bit confusing, really, because if you deliver a performance like that, you think the studios would be clambering for her, or offering her similar roles. She might have got typecast, yeah, but it does seem a bit of an odd one. I know what you're saying with that, yeah.
Maybe she auditioned a few times and it was just a fluke. I don't know. But I find that very hard to believe, the way she performed in that film. But, okay, John, should we move on to your next pick then?
Yeah, well, the next one, actually, funny enough, the next one is going to be the only female that I've chosen in my particular.
Sorry, yeah, there is another female here. Sorry.
No, it's not the way I've done it. It's just the way it's kind of on the thing here. So I thought, right, it's quite strange that the two together, females. But the one I want to talk about now is Lady Gaga from A Star Is Born. Now, funny enough, a bit of background into this. I've got no real interest. I had no real interest in watching this film at all. I was familiar with Lady Gaga's music. I wasn't a fan. I thought she could sing, but that's about it. And sometimes when these singers become actresses and they're kind of the new flavour of the month, the films are actually either atrocious or they can't act. They can just sing. I mean, Elvis, he was a great singer, but he couldn't really, really act, and his films were abysmal, most of them anyway, unfortunately. So quite an interesting side note is Elvis wanted to be the role in the lead in the 1976 version of A Star Is Born, but he didn't get the part, or he didn't go for it. And I think he had ill health at the time, so that didn't happen for it. Anyway, fast forward all these years. So anyway, so I got this film, and it was funny because I heard, the Shallows song from this film, yeah. And I heard it on the radio constantly, and it kind of come into my mind. I think, well, this song isn't that bad. I may just give it a go. And when it was in Morrison's, and I picked it up on Blu-ray, put it on, expecting to think, nah, it's all right. And I was completely blown away by Lady Gaga's performance. Was the standout for me. I couldn't believe that she acted so well in this film. I mean, she's a great singer, yes, obviously, but her performance is this person coming up from the gutter. Well, not the gutter, but somebody who doesn't think they've got any star capability, and they meet this star who puts them into the limelight and they become a sensation. It was just really, really well done. Plus, as well, it's quite a gritty performance because there's a lot of swearing in it. There's more than I would ever thought. So you would think that it would kind of fail on that thing, that in fact it wasn't going for the kind of PG rating story-wise. It was kind of no holds barred. Obviously, it's quite like dark, and it's quite like it gets your emotions going and all that. It's quite an emotional film. But if Lady Gaga hadn't done this film, personally, I don't think this film would have been a hit in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, I thought when she was gonna, like, I was a bit like you. I weren't really that interested in this movie, and I was blown away by it. I thought it's great. But I was just like, yeah, she is the flavour of the month here. That's why she's in this film. And maybe I shouldn't have thought that, because I was absolutely baffled by how good she actually was. And considering she'd never really acted before, I mean, I know she's been in one or two little side roles and stuff, but not major. I mean, I think she was just credited as an extra half the time. It was an unbelievable performance, and someone that you really, really got behind, and attached yourself to the character, because, like you said, she's come up and coming, and she makes it, and you're just so happy for her, aren't you? But I think this is definitely the most surprising performance on this list, because I just went in with no expectations whatsoever, and she was absolutely brilliant. And I think, not to go on to Bradley Cooper, but I think they did help each other out on the screen. They bounced off each other brilliantly. And sometimes when you give such a good performance, some great performances also work well on screen with someone else. And I thought the chemistry between them was great. I thought it really worked. It was very, very believable, the way they both acted, but it felt like they were really in a relationship there, and you felt the struggles of them and what they were going through at times, and you felt her joy and stuff when things happened for her. It was all there. She nailed that performance down. I thought she was great. And like you said, that song, you still hear it to this day on the radio all the time. She sort of made that song her own now, and even though it's probably made for the movie, but it's a brilliant performance, and yeah, it's just a great character that you root for, really. But anything else to say on Lady Gaga, John? I haven't seen this movie since I seen her on the cinema, to be honest. I've got to be honest, I haven't seen it for a while, but I do remember her and Bradley Cooper being brilliant.
Well, that's another good point as well. And the chemistry between them was great. I think that because I think that Bradley Cooper saw her on a stage somewhere and thought, I've got to have her for this movie. If I don't get her for this movie, then the movie's not going to happen. So, but I think it's a thing you can talk about in some of these films and roles in general, where you've got a preconception of what you think it's going to be. And you can sometimes put a film off. I could have got Whiplash and just said, not interested at all. It's about jazz. I don't like jazz. I'm not going to give it any shot. And I would have missed out on a terrific performance. So as well, with Lady Gaga, you think a lot of people can go on with this misconception that Lady Gaga is just a one-trick pony, but she's an extremely talented musician, that's no doubt. But the fact that she could pull off a role, and she can steal the show from established actors in here, and as well, there's a fella in here, and he plays Bradley Cooper's brother, and he's amazing in this. And I'm not saying I don't really like him as an actor, but Sam somebody, and I think, but he was just amazing in this film. So, and I think he got a sort of Academy Award, or best sort of what's it called?
Oh, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. The older fella, yeah, I get it. So.
Got the moustache.
Yeah, I know you.
And for him, who's a really established actor, for her to steal the whole film, and I would imagine the actors would have given it to her and just said, "You've done an amazing job." Now, an interesting fact, I did want to watch this film predominantly because there's a character in here, there's an actor in here called Andrew Dice Clay, who I'm a big fan of. He's a comedian in general, and he plays Lady Gaga's father in this film, and he's great in it, and but he just plays a small role. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to see it. But the fact is, when I got it on the Blu-ray, I've got it in 4K now. I've got the extended version, which, to be honest, the extended version isn't really that much. Like it doesn't bring anything to the party. I prefer the shorter version, which is odd. And I've watched this film about 4 times, and I was watching it. When I see a film that I'm thinking that I would be a one watch and just say, what's all the hype about, and then forget about it, probably sell it straight away. The fact is that I'm rewatching it all the time and went for the best possible version I can. Shows you that this film, it's funny that the film that you don't have any hopes, not hopes, but you don't think there's going to be a film you're going to revisit or think it's going to be anything, any kind of being by a performance. We're going through performances here. This performance made me just love this film, you know, and I can purely say off the Lady Gaga performance, it's elevated this film to a next level for me. It's definitely my top 25 films, for sure.
But talking about it now is actually making me want to watch it. But I think it just looked like she'd been acting for years in that role. And it's quite surprising that she hadn't. She was absolutely brilliant in that movie, and just says don't judge a book by its cover, if you like. Not by its cover, but you know, we weren't expecting that, and she's in our top 10 performers ever on our video, so just shows you, doesn't it? All right then, well, that is Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born. I think you brought up some great points there, John. Sorry I wasn't a little bit more helpful there. I just haven't seen the film for a few years. I really should have probably rewatched it for this video, but there you go. Sorry about that, everyone. But I think John led that one really well. Okay, so I think my next pick is going to be Denzel Washington in Training Day. Now, he is a lot of people's favourite actor out there working today. One of my favourite actors. I do feel like this is his best performance that he's ever given. I just love how very in your face he is in this movie. Ethan Hawke is very wary of him. He's kind of a J.K. Simmons character, if you like. You know, very, you know, trying to show everyone that he's in charge. It shows that he is very intimidating with the community near the end of the movie. Are all like sort of terrified of him, and it takes a lot to sort of overpower him a little bit. But I just love, like, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, John. I will ask you the question in a second, but when I was first watching this, I was just like, what's this guy up to here? I mean, I didn't quite know whether to get on board with him or not. I don't know if it was a test for Ethan Hawke. Is he just testing him or whatever? Is he really trying to find the best out of Ethan Hawke here? Is he trying to make sure that he can do this job? I didn't quite know how to make of it when I first watched it. But on a rewatch, I feel like it's even better because you know what he's up to, and I just think he's a brilliant mastermind in this film. But like he just powers the screen, even the tone of his voice and everything. He's just very confident, a very confident character in this movie. I just think he's absolutely brilliant, and as good as Ethan Hawke is in this film, I don't think he can quite be on the same level as Denzel, because Denzel in this is just absolutely exceptional. But what I wanted to ask you, John, is this the first time you watched this movie the other day? Yeah. Okay, so was you kind of like that when you watched it? Was you thinking, what's this guy up to? Or did you sort of get onto what he was doing or stuff?
No, well, obviously there's going to be a bit of spoilers in this one because I'm going to talk about more or less the whole film or the whole elements of the film, which I really enjoyed. My wife's a big fan of Denzel Washington. To be honest, I don't really have that many Denzel Washington films in my collection, if any, believe it or not. And the only reason behind that is because sometimes I feel that he does films that are a bit more like political dramas and stuff like that, which I'm not really a fan of, if I'm honest. So I've kind of put him to one side. And obviously with this film, Training Day, I don't know what I thought it was going to even be about. I thought it was just going to be like a buddy cop drama. I didn't think it would have any meat to it, if you know what I mean. But everybody talks about this film and said it's just unreal. So when you mentioned it, I thought, well, I'm going to give it a watch. Yeah, of course I will. And but I didn't get a handle on him till literally about halfway through the film. And I think me and my wife both turned to each other and said, hang on a minute, he's planned all of this. You know, he's set this bloke up. And he's had it on, and he did explain, he says, I've set you up for this. I've been thinking about it for a week. And Ethan Hawke kind of thinks this is all just a ruse to get him to get what he wants at the end of the film. But saying that, though, the performance of Denzel Washington in this film was just unreal. And I thought, he'd be all right, because he is a good actor. I'm not saying he's not. But I didn't realise how good he would be and how believable he would be in this role, because I've never seen him as having this type of role, this kind of hard, cop who's unscrupulous and he's down on the street. I didn't think you would kind of get that across, but I'll tell you what, this film has went from being one that I was just never ever think I was going to go and see to thinking, where is the 4K of this film, or where is the Blu-ray of this? I need to buy this immediately, because it was probably the best performance that I put off for the longest time, and was blown away by. I thought he would be good at what he did, but A as well. B, I didn't think the film would be as good as it was. I thought the film would just be an average sort of like cop drama, a bit like Bad Boys, all that type of thing. I thought I would have got a bit out of it and thought, well, that was all right. But there's so much more to it. It's a film that quite rightly sits on the top of a lot of people's lists, and for the obvious reason of the storyline and the character arc that comes with Denzel's character, which for most of the film you don't know is there, but when you're watching it you think, hang on, this has been right there from the start. When you go back and think about it, that you can tell right from the word go, he picked Ethan Hawke because he's a rookie. He's going to stitch him up. He's going to make everything about him, and he's put him into a situation where he said that all his group have said, you killed this bloke, so now you're involved in this. You've got all this stuff in your system, because he's getting them to take sort of like smoke some weed. So you've got all this. Who are they going to believe? So he's got everything nailed to the last part of this film. But Ethan Hawke in it, I'm so amazed at his performance. For you kind of feel for him in a way, because he's got the dream job. Me and my wife said to each other, saying, it must be the worst first day in a job that anybody has ever had in the history of the world.
Yeah.
But it's one day as well. Training day obviously is one day, but wow, what a film, what a performance. And for me, I'm glad that you mentioned this one to me, because obviously there was a couple in here I had to rewatch because I hadn't seen for a long time, or with Training Day at all. So I've just got to say, you picked the blinder here, because I'm always interested in seeing new films. I'm not one of the ones who sits around and says, "Oh, I'm going to watch Jaws 3,000 times." I want to have myself new experiences, but this was a really good experience, and now I can see why everybody shouts Denzel's name from the rafters, because yeah, it was a standout performance for me. And my wife as well was thinking. She said, "I can't believe where this has ended up," as a sort of in the whole 2 hours. I think it's only 2 hours long, but wow. What they put into that film it was great, brilliant.
I think you've just summed it up perfectly, John. To be honest, I'm really glad you liked the movie, mate. I didn't know you hadn't seen it, to be honest, but I'm happy to hear that you thought he was great. But I'll just ask you another question in a minute. But like you said there, the way he's setting them up and stuff, that's what. I know he's a scumbag and stuff, but you've got to respect the mastermind of the guy in this movie, like the way he set it up and stuff. And when he was like getting them to smoke the weed, it was like, oh, you're out of order there. But later on, you realise why he's made them do it. He's like, I've never smoked it, never. It's like, oh, you total asshole. Sorry for swearing, everyone, but I know this sounds very, very wrong, but I think characters like this sometimes are a little bit more watchable for the screen. It's kind of like, why do you like violence on screen? Well, it's just like a little, you get you away from sort of the real world. That's why a lot of people love horror and stuff, because there's a lot of killings and stuff. I feel like this is the type of character as well that people like, but they wouldn't like in real life, if you get me. But they're good to watch on screen, like him and J.K. Simmons. I don't know why, can't put my finger on it. But I sort of feel like it's kind of like when you see killings on screen and stuff. We don't know why we like them, we just do. And a lot of people are like that, I think. But I just wanted to ask you, now you said you stayed away from Denzel Washington a bit. Has this made you want to see more of his movies, or are you still in the same mindset that you don't want to see too many political dramas and stuff? I mean, there is a few other films that he's done that aren't that, but does it make you want to watch any more of them? Or
it does, actually. Yeah. Because I think, well, quite wrongly, I've typecast him in a film in an actor who plays maybe straight characters, who doesn't have any sort of outside the sort of norm characters. I mean, getting back to what you're saying about people who are like really despicable, like Tony Montana from Scarface. You would not want to meet him in real life, but you can't take your eyes off him. And his character arc of just being the most just maddest person you're ever going to meet. but he's utterly watchable in that film. And it's the same with Training Day, that you think, you know, that imagine being, I just said to my wife, imagine being in that position of Ethan Hawke, knowing that you're just getting, not set up at the first, he doesn't know that, but knowing when he says, you know, and he says, oh, drink your beer, do this. Oh, I'm not doing that. He says, right, get out of the car, go over there, help that bloke with the tyre, fixing it, that rookie cop over there, that's your job from now on, or getting back in the car. So he'd have to get back in the car because, you know, he only wants to do good. But this, and I think that he's kind of like a mastermind in a way, because he's done you've got to take your hat off to him to have the ingenuity to set all this up and we're in the same darkness as well when we're going to the movie. We don't know what he's all about. We think he's probably one of these kind of Dirty Harry kind of characters who was like, he's good. You wouldn't think he was as bad as he is and as crooked as he is until you kind of, it clicks halfway through the film. And then you turn into this other Tony Montana kind of character who, you know, he's on a pathway to you don't know what's going to become of him, because you think he deserves a rotten ending, but is he going to meet it? What's going to happen to him? And he becomes someone who's hyper violent, and the things he does is just unreal. But you know that he's got that kind of mentality that you'll just go to any lengths. So yes, the short answer to that film is yes. I will be getting more Denzel Washington to watch. Kind of maybe a similar type of film. I maybe might not go to the sort of is it American History? I think that's one that
American Gangster.
Yeah,
American Gangster. Yeah.
So I might go not so much to them ones at the first start, but to me, I mean, I might go like is it Man on Fire and things like that. From about that time period, I will start to investigate Denzel Washington. I mean, don't get us wrong, I always thought he's a good actor. I just thought his movies or the subject matter weren't really in my sort of, you know, mindset. But I've changed your mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just wanted to say as well, real quick. Forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought. Sorry, that was it. Like halfway through the film when it clicks, I was sort of thinking, all right, he's gonna explain himself here, why he's doing this and stuff, and he's gonna be a good guy, you know. It's Denzel Washington. He's gonna turn out to be a good character and all this, and he'll explain his actions because he's doing this for a reason. But like you said, he is just a bad man, isn't he? So kind of like someone you don't want to. When you turn to your wife and say, wouldn't you hate to be Ethan Hawke? I think, you know, Denzel Washington's doing the role right, because he is just very.
This film. I felt so bad for him because he really just wanted to be good at his job, and unfortunately got in the wrong car with the wrong person who was just going to exploit him to the very. But Ethan Hawke's character, his art was that he came good at the end, and he became much more of a man than Denzel Washington could ever be, because he became the sort of like what a cop is supposed to be. And interestingly enough, I was quite interested to see Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg in the film as well, which is always a good.
Dr. Dre, not the greatest actor in the world, but he was okay. Should we move on then, John, to the next movie that you? I did have something else to say about Denzel there, but I'll just move on. We've spent quite a while on him now. Okay, glad you like the movie anyway. What's your next pick then, John?
Well, your next pick is well, I was thinking to myself when you were talking about performances, this person coming to my mind straight away, Clint Eastwood, because I've always been a big fan of Clint Eastwood, and I think some of the films that I've got that I like are his. He puts an amazing performance in, and everybody can talk about The Man with No Name. We can talk about another one that was close to putting on this list was going to be Heartbreak Ridge. His character in there is just absolutely amazing. The fact he just seems to be rock hard in that film, you know. And even when he just doesn't take no rubbish off anybody. But the one I went for was Gran Torino, which was in 2008. Now, if you think about it, Clint Eastwood was roundabouts in his late 70s at this point, which I think he had to be for this character when he was, and maybe a lot of people wouldn't choose to be this character who was going to be really bigoted against Vietnamese people who lived in his neighborhood. He didn't like them at all because he'd fought in the Vietnam War. He had a real big grudge against them. Obviously, one of the neighbors stole his Gran Torino car, which put him on a pathway to sort of not get his own back on them, but to make them think that they were real, what he thought they were, and they weren't really like that. But the whole character arc of this was that he actually came to help them out, and he also came to be champion them in the way that he actually sort of sacrificed himself, because he knew he had cancer and it was going to spread and he was on his way out, sort of thing. But he did this one good, true heroic act, and in the form of helping these people out by getting them to effectively shoot them to set them up, the gangsters in this area, so they would get out of the place, so they would kind of make the area really good and livable for this community, which was not their fault. There was just a bad gang in it, but he got rid of the bad gang by his selfless deeds. So, but you don't really know that at the first, because he does really detest these people, and he's cursing them, and he's thinking he's get off my lawn. He's got all these things, but also as well, getting back to the Heartbreak Ridge sort of element in it, you can believe that Clint Eastwood is that rock and hard in this film, because when people are coming to him, he's giving them the squint and they're looking at him. You feel like you always don't feel like he's one of these, how can I put it, like action stars, which you can tell that they're not really like. You just get the feeling that he's like this in real life. I know he's probably not like, but it's great that he can, at that age, he can make this film so believable. It was going to be his last performance that he was ever going to do. And he doesn't do many, and he has done, I think, 3 since. But the last one being The Mule, which I haven't seen yet, but I do want to see. But he's just thoroughly believable in this. But I like the fact that he's got a really huge character arc in this. I always like a character arc, obviously, because you kind of learn a bit more about the character. But I do think he's so believable in this film.
Yeah, I think that was the main thing I was going to mention is the character arc of him. At first, he doesn't even like these Korean people who move into the neighborhood, if I remember correctly. In the end, he goes to end up helping them, doesn't he? And he totally changes his whole look on life. I mean, he's obviously a racist and stuff, and in the end, he's just, then he's helped these people for the rest of their lives, basically. And what I love about this, he always stays grounded with his personality. I mean, even though he helps these people and stuff, it's the anger that he's got in his voice all the time. Like he never seems happy, and he's always like just telling people to the face, and like he doesn't care what he says to people if he upsets them. He's always got that look about him, and this little angry face and stuff, and that's what I really like about him in this movie. Even when the arc's done, he's still like, get off my lawn. But yeah, he's great in this, and I just love every scene that he's in. Like he'll like that moment with the gangsters picking on that Korean girl and the young lad, and he just comes up to them and just pulls his finger out like that, and it's like, well, the way he just goes up to these characters and doesn't care and stuff, and he's not scared of anyone in this movie. But it's very, very believable. Clint Eastwood's a fantastic actor, and I think he's great in this. But the main thing I took out of it was the character arc. Like I love him from where he was at the start of the film to the end. It's just great. And I know this isn't actually him, but you remember when that guy says to him, "Don't get out of here before I kick your old white wrinkly ass." I just thought that was hilarious. But yeah, he's sort of obsessed with helping this young boy as well, isn't he? And I think that's a great testament to his character as well. I mean, you don't like him, but at first, but obviously you grow attached to him and stuff. And that's a big thing with most of these characters, I think. Well, not most of them, but attaching yourself to these characters is an important thing. And I definitely did with him in that film. 2008 was quite a good year, actually. But yeah, a top tier actor, isn't he? Really. Anything else to say on Clint Eastwood, John? That's another one I haven't seen for a while. I did try and watch it this week, but I just couldn't get around to it. But I do remember the movie and stuff. Anything else to say on Clint Eastwood? I
haven't seen that myself for a while, but I will be rewatching it actually. I just think that I was thinking wrongly. And if it being 2008, maybe with him going to stop acting from that film, he was going to make it his sort of epitaph. and he was going to go out with a bang, and he was going to go out with a sort of memorable character, which is one of his most memorable characters in this. And everybody who's seen it, you know, they might put like the Man with No Name trilogy in there, and they might talk about the Dirty Harry stuff, which they're all great, and they might mention a bit about Heartbreak Ridge and this sort of maybe sort of 90s sort of ones that aren't really not memorable, but they're not. There's some really good films in there, but they always go back to Gran Torino, which could be it's not the final part. Don't get us right. I hope he makes more films in years to come. But I think that just as somebody who's an elderly person, an actor, sometimes they can't finish off the career, if that sounds anything. But I think is the fact. The thing is, though, if you get some 80-year-old actors, which he nearly was in that film, and they're going to make that movie, they might look foolish and they might not be able to put something across that he could. Now he's getting on. He's 90 now. 90 plus. He could probably do that again. You know, you could probably give that type of character in a certain way the believability, which not many people can do. And I think that's down to the fact that Clint Eastwood is just that type of person he's got that respect in the community of actors that people know that he's a real deal for me. And I just think it was a great way. I don't think of it as his epitaph at all, but I do think that he did a great bookend of his career, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with that, because what it is, he's a top tier actor. And I was watching a film the other day called Pieces of a Woman on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen it, but have you seen it? No? Ellen Burstyn's in that film, basically the woman off The Exorcist. I think but she was just put into this role, and I'm sure she'd done all the scenes in one take because she's that good of an actress, and that's what Clint Eastwood's like. I feel like you could just put him into this role, even now at the age of 90, and he'll just do it because he's just elite. He's elite level, and this is definitely one of his best roles. I agree with that. But I think it's probably one of his most rewatchable roles as well, to be honest. If I'm going to pick a Clint Eastwood film, I'd probably go with Gran Torino right now if I was going to pick one, to be honest, because he's such a great character in the movie. And like I said, I love the way he's just so angry all the time. But all right, that is Clint Eastwood and Gran Torino. John, should we move on to the next one? We've got one more each, I think. Yeah. Okay. Well, my final pick is, I've saved the best one to last, in my opinion, and my pick is going to be Al Pacino in The Godfather Parts 1 and 2. I do think he's probably at his best in the second one, but I think he's great in both movies. And to me, this character is why Al Pacino, for me, is the greatest actor of all time. I know he's done some brilliant roles like Scarface, Carlito's Way, many, many more. But for me, this is his defining moment. I just think they picked the absolute spot-on cast for this character. And what I love, it's going back to what we said about Clint Eastwood, really. It's the arc of the character. I think it's the greatest movie arc of all time. I just think Al Pacino, from what he is at the start of The Godfather to what he is in The Godfather 2, is a totally different character altogether. Like, he doesn't want to be involved with the mafia. He just wants this nice little life with his girlfriend. Isn't it named Diana or something? I forgot her name.
Diane Keaton.
Yeah, the name's Diane Keaton. Her name's Kay in the movie, sorry. And he just wants this nice little life, you know. There's moments where you see him going Christmas shopping with her and stuff like that. And he just doesn't want to be a part of this. But his father is actually like gunned down in the street, and he sort of has to take action, basically. And his father, played by Marlon Brando, who's the Godfather, he knows that Michael is the smart one and Sonny is just a loose cannon. And he knows deep in his mind that Michael is the man to take this family forward. Even though he doesn't want him to, he knows he's probably going to be the best choice. There's so many great things about this character, especially at the end of Godfather 1. Some of the decisions that he makes, you don't see coming, especially when you watch it for the first time, where you feel like the Corleone family are getting buried into the ground deeper and deeper, and they're just not going to exist because all these other families want to do drug businesses and stuff, and next minute they're all just taken out in this matter of seconds because Al Pacino is so ruthless. he will just, if you cross him, you're dead, basically, as we see with his sister's boyfriend at the end of the first movie and stuff. And he's just got this look on his face. I mean, he's got this stare where he just stares at the character. And I remember watching this with my fiance a few months ago because she'd never seen him. And there's a moment where in The Godfather 1, Mo Green says, I have to slap your brother around a little bit. And he just goes, you slapped my brother around, Mo? And it's like, oh my God, you've said it now. And there's no comeback for you here. I just think it's an amazing performance by the greatest actor of all time. What are your thoughts on Al Pacino and The Godfather, John? Are you a fan?
Yes, big fan. I'm a big fan of Al Pacino in general. As you said, I can't think of him having a bad role in anything, which is unusual for an actor. Usually, even maybe Clint Eastwood's made a sort of film that's a bit questionable in the early 80s that you're probably not that connected to. But for me, every Al Pacino movie I've seen with him in it, he always plays an absolutely amazing character, well performed. And obviously, The Godfather is a film that it's strange because everybody sort of thinks of Marlon Brando when you first think The Godfather, but really the real star of The Godfather is Al Pacino. And you don't really see that coming at the start of it, I've got to admit, because he plays someone a bit like fresh-faced and a bit more somebody who you would obviously think that Sonny would be the one who was going to take over everything because he is the kind of the mouthpiece of the family. But as it sort of goes through the first two films, you can see him like changing into being in the sort of mafiosi style, but to be more ruthless than anybody who's ever been in the whole two films. I mean, there's been some ruthless characters in there, but his performance in there is so believable as well. I like the fact, especially in part two, when he plays this sort of cool character, look like the eyes, he's staring at stuff, and then he can just erupt in just the worst temper you've ever seen in your life. And the one standout thing that for this whole part two, which is the one I watched the other night, is when Diane Keaton says to him that he actually had his son aborted. It wasn't a miscarriage. In his face, I have never seen such acting in his face, his whole mouth. You just thought the rage that you thought was coming here was unreal. And obviously, when he kind of went and struck her across the head, and it looked completely real to me. I was quite blown away by how like real that slap looked. But it was just acting that was taken to another level. That again, could anybody else have pulled this acting role off? If it wasn't Al Pacino? Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right there. The look on his face when he hears the news of that is, oh. Yeah, I thought he was going to. Sorry, I've just off the camera. I thought he was actually going to kill her, to be honest. But he just takes no prisoners. He's so ruthless, and it shows at the very end of the movie where his brother Fredo doesn't care. That's it. See ya. You crossed me. I can't trust you. Goodbye. And it's just, I think the line was crossed there even with me. I thought, no, you've made a very bad decision. I was sort of behind him for the whole movie, and when he done that, I thought, I didn't even think he could go that far, but he did. And there's a scene at the end of The Godfather 2, John, the last scene of the movie, where it shows you Al Pacino before all this happened and stuff, and Sonny's like, oh, you stupid little kid and all this, and you can't believe what you've just seen to what he was. The arc is unbelievable. You sort of see it in moments through the first one as well, where he's sort of growing as this character, where he's basically just saying to that guy in Sicily, look, I want to talk to your daughter. Just sit down, calm down, and tells him straight, basically, look, I want to see your daughter. And I think that's the first sort of moment, apart from where he shoots the police officer, obviously, where he's starting to get a lot of confidence in himself now, and he believes that he can be at the top. I just think it's a fantastic performance, and like you said, he's not bad in really anything, is he? I mean, I don't think I've seen a bad performance by the guy. He's just absolutely brilliant. Tim and De Niro for me are unbelievable, and there you go, they're both in the second one as well. So,
Pacino was really good in that Godfather Part 2, and one of the standout scenes in that film that I forgot totally about was the fact when he went to go and see the fella who set his mother up to actually get killed at the start of the film when they flashed that scene. And you knew he was going to get him, but I never expected him to pull that knife out and practically gut him. put the thing, stick it in and just go right up his sort of whole body. And I went, wow. But I don't know. I mean, obviously there's massive amount of violence in the mafia anyway. That's realistic, and the film was super realistic. But I mean, stand-up performances all around. Actually, there wasn't a person in there that I didn't think was good at what they were doing. But Al Pacino, as well, is even when he's sort of in the film and he's not saying anything, he's just looking. There's a lot of times when he's just looking at he's looking at people, or he's looking in the camera, or he's just got to, he's getting cross-examined by that committee. And even that is good acting when he's not even doing anything. Or he is doing stuff, but he's not even saying anything. But you're looking at, you can't take your eyes off him. So yeah, standout performance again. Yeah,
I totally agree. He has got that look. And one quick scene I want to mention just before we finish on Al Pacino. It's nothing really, like you said. It's one of them scenes where it doesn't really stand out, but for me, it's great acting. Where this guy at the start of the movie in Godfather 2, he's like, "You're gonna make me an offer, and I'm gonna accept it. I'm gonna walk out this door, but I can't stand your whole effing family." And Al Pacino just goes, "Here's my offer now, if you want." I think, but it's just the way he says it, and I was like, "Yeah, go on, Al Pacino." But okay, John, I think we spoke on Al Pacino there. Do you want to move on to your last one, or you got anything else to say, or do you want to move on to yours?
Very quick thing about that is that I think somebody could have overplayed that part to be taking it a little bit too. And the fact is, like you say, with that scene where he just says to him, "Here's my offer," nothing, and he could have got up, he could have stuck a gun in his face, and he could have been so ridiculously over the top, but he didn't have to be. And I think that was the mark of that film, the fact he's so, but then again, he's got them explosions of rage, so you know exactly what he's capable of. And obviously his deeds, you can see he's got no empathy with anybody. If you get in his way, you're gone. That's the end of it. Doesn't matter who you are, if you're his wife, if you're his, the fact, when you see him and his wife, he comes to see the kids, and she's standing there, and he's kind of looking at him. He comes in, you think, oh, he's going to kind of melt a little bit and say, "Well, there's some money," or do you want to see the kids? And you just shut the door straight.
Shut the door, yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Even that moment where his sister comes in with their new boyfriend, and he's just sits down and just looks in her face and just says, "Look, say goodbye to this man. You don't need him in your life." It's just the way he talks to people in it. It just commands the presence, doesn't he? Anyway, that is Al Pacino on The Godfather 1 and 2. Some great points there, John. Do you want to move on to your last pick then, mate?
Okay, so my last pick. It's not going to surprise many people here. I remember when we were talking about this, I think you were thinking I was going to have this character in my top 5. This is definitely my top 1. If I put up many lists about actors or movies or anything, this is probably either top or very high in it. And it's going to be John Hurt's performance in the 1980 film The Elephant Man. And he plays John Merrick in the film. And the reason why I love this film anyway, but the reason why I like this film is because of John Hurt's performance as John Merrick. Nobody knew. There's no reference for John Merrick. There's no video of him. There's no footage of him at all. There's just a few photographs. So he had to sort of get the level of the man from just his own. I don't know how he drew on the whole thing of it, but the fact that he put him across in a way that you knew that this person was more than just somebody who was the thought at the start of the movie he couldn't speak. He was an imbecile that didn't think anything of him, rather than he was just the kind of judged a book by the cover. And he proved, like in real life, he knew, he was well read. He was a follower of fiction. He used to love his fiction stuff. He was a bit of an artist. He was just an all-around sort of person. He used to write poetry. So there's a lot to him. But I think that John Hurt brought that out in a way that at the first you did get that impression that maybe he's somebody who doesn't understand anything, but then you get the kind of great reveal that he did understand everything that was going on, and he did know all about it. And I think his performance with a huge mask on, all you can see is his eyes. And it's a bit like Conrad Veidt. He's acting with his eyes. So he brought out that performance that, can a lot of people do this? I don't know. He's got that, his voice is the right voice for him. It's got this whole, because he was meant to be a very humble, sort of like well-grounded person who should have had the world on his shoulders. He should have hated the world. He could have been a complete, you know what I mean, the things that happened to him. But he didn't have that sort of thing in his persona. He just had this sort of, it just brought him out as like a real, like amazing character. And I think John Hurt brought that out, as opposed to making a sort of, I don't know how they could have done it if it wasn't John Hurt or David Lynch. This film is perfect. I don't think it should ever be remade. I think it says it. It's done it. You need to watch that film if you want to know about the Elephant Man. And that's it, really. I think that, for me, I mean, I always like John Hurt in other films, but I don't know. And when I see the film, I don't even think of John Hurt. I think of Joseph Merrick or John Merrick. I don't think of the fact that, I don't think, oh, that's John Hurt being really good. I think I'm transported to that character. I'm actually watching John Merrick in real life, kind of thing. So, yes.
Yeah, my fiance's dad's a big fan of this movie. I remember speaking to him after I watched it for the first time last year. I had it on Blu-ray, but the way you were going on about it, I thought, no, I'm going to give this a watch now. Because John from Mondo, Chelloveck, obviously yourself, obviously loves this movie. So it made me push me towards it and get it high on my list and watch it. But my fiance's dad's a big fan of this movie. And when I spoke to him about it, I just said, isn't it really, like, I remembered the name John Merrick. I was like, it's not fair on John Merrick, is it? And I kept saying, like, John Merrick because I was so attached to the character. And it's kind of like Conrad Vedi. I forgot his name already. Conrad Vedi and The Man Who Laughs, like you said, with his eyes, you're right. But it's also like him with the emotional attachment you get because you feel so sorry for him. I think the best way to describe John Merrick in this, because there's scenes in this movie where people are laughing at him. There's a scene where they all run down from the pub and this guy goes, yeah, if you pay me, I'll give you a ticket and I'll take you all down the pub and you can all laugh at him and point the finger and, you can finally get to see the Elephant Man. And I think there's a scene in the subway, is that right, where they're all pointing at him, is that right?
Yeah, in the train station, just follow him because he's inadvertently knocked some child who was trying to shoot him with a pea shooter and stuff like that. So rather than people looking at the fact of there's been a naughty kid in this mix, they've just looked at him and thought, as always judging a book by his cover, they've thought this man in the strange sort of mask and he can't walk properly. They've went and made a beeline for him, but obviously he stood his ground on then, and he kind of, one of the memorable scenes, I'm not an animal, I'm a man, So it kind of brings back the point that there's a lot of that in this film. You're right. The fact that there's a lot of cruelty in it. And to be honest, his whole life must have been had this cruel element to it, which you can empathise because at the time it was made, the time he was alive, in the late 1800s, a lot of people with deformities were either ridiculed or were put into circus shows and just didn't have any support whatsoever.
Well, what it is with the pub scene I just mentioned, where they all run to the hospital and laugh at him, and the train station scene, I think the best way to sum this character up in this movie is that he is the only human in this movie, if you like, compared to a lot of other characters in it. Not the only human, but he shows how human he is compared to a lot of other people in this movie. And it goes on to what we said, you should never ever judge a book by its cover, because he is one of the nicest movie characters I think I've ever seen. He is just so likable. You feel so sorry for him, and he just wants to do. He's a good person. There's a scene. What some of my favourite scenes in this movie are, though, John. I think there's two scenes where the women come and speak to him at the hospital. I think one's an actress or something, and he just has a conversation with them, and it's just like, it just shows you how human he actually is, and it's just so unfair on the guy. So I think it's a brilliant performance by John Hurt, and but like I said, I remember it as John Merrick, to be honest, but that's probably because John Hurt acted the character so well. And another brilliant film by David Lynch, by the way. If any of our viewers haven't watched any David Lynch films, please do watch them, because they're absolutely amazing, and this is one of his best. But I know you're a massive fan of this movie, aren't you? He just wants acceptance, doesn't he? And it shouldn't be that way. I mean, I know we're in a society nowadays where I know there's all horrible people online and stuff like that, but I think a lot of people have come to accept people for the way they are and stuff. So I can imagine in the 1800s that it would have been so bad for this guy, with people mocking him and all that. But great pick, John. I loved the film. I absolutely loved it, and I'm going to watch it again pretty soon. Anything else to say on John Hurt? I know it's your favourite, but
Well, just basically what you said there is about the fact that he could have been he didn't want anything. He obviously wanted to be cured, which he found he couldn't be cured, so he accepted that. You know, imagine somebody with them deformities, which were ongoing; they were getting worse and worse as he was getting older. He was only 27 when he died, so for him to have a short life, and he really only wanted to be accepted, which I think he was by his peers in the hospital. And he also just wanted to he didn't want much out of life. It's not as if he says, well, I want to go to here, I want to do this, I want to be an actor. He didn't want any of that. He just wanted to have a normal life. So I think he could have been the real person. John Merrick could have been the opposite. He could have been affected. He could have been bitter. He could have been just not despicable, but he wouldn't have blamed him if he was kind of like a nasty piece of work, you know, for what life had thrown at him. But he was the exact opposite, which is the thing that got me about this film, the fact that he was so just a normal fella, in fact, just trapped in a sort of body that he had no control over. And it was just a weird time in the world to be born into that and be remembered for that. And I'd like to think now he's not really remembered so much as the Elephant Man, just as everybody knows the name John Merrick and everybody knows the name of Elephant Man, but I don't think it has the same connotations as it did when he was exhibited as a freak, which I don't think, well, he obviously wasn't. And I don't think there's such a thing as a freak, actually, if I'm honest. Yeah, just a good human person, just a human being. Yeah, top notch.
am I right in saying this? Like, if my memory serves me right, is Anthony Hopkins sort of just wanting him? He does want to help him, but at the start, is he sort of judging him a little bit? Am I right in thinking that? Because he sort of goes home to his wife at one point and says, "I'm a bad man for doing this." Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
yeah.
it shows. Sorry, John. I just think it shows when Anthony Hopkins spends so much time with him, he gets to realise himself as a character how good of a man he really actually is. So I think that's a good aspect of the film as well.
Well, you touched on a good point there, because the film itself is great. John Hurt's exceptional, of course he is, but the other actors with him, and even Anthony Hopkins, who's playing quite a sort of, his role, he's kind of taken it down a notch. He's playing a kind of a bit of a quiet fella. He's not really putting his acting to the foremost, but he's amazing what he does. Obviously, you've got the fella who sort of looks after John Merrick, played by, I think it's Freddie Francis, and he's great in this film, but he's a really horrible piece of work. And if he didn't have the whole cast in there, this film wouldn't have worked. It's another one where, getting back to some of these characters, even though Jaws, I love Quint's character. If he didn't have the other backup of the other great people in this film, it just wouldn't have made the mark. So I've got to give everything to all the people in the film. But yeah, I agree with the fact that he does kind of at the start, he's using them for his own benefits. He's more or less exhibiting. And he kind of realizes that, I think, hang on a minute. I think when it clicks to think that this person isn't just somebody who's just somebody who doesn't, he obviously didn't think he was intellectual by any point, but he was well written, well read. He would read lots of stuff to himself because obviously he spent a lot of time with himself. This is the real person. He couldn't mix in public. So what else do you do? You bury yourself in the books, which is probably his only outlet at the time. Obviously, he used to read a lot of romance and fiction. And as a young kid, maybe that appealed to him. So I think he had this this sort of aspect of himself. He's a bit of a romantic at heart, you know, and all these things add to the sort of cruelness of the whole, the character having this aspirations to just being a fan of romantic novels, and maybe used to think of himself as the lead person in these Romeo and Juliets. And obviously the reality was he couldn't be any of that. So I think that's why he had this sort of thing in books. Maybe he read more books than probably most people did at that age. So there's thousands of things you can talk about with the Elephant Man. It leads on to every time you have a discussion about it, it leads into a different field of just life in general, you know. So that's why I like it. It's a good talking point, Moody.
Yeah. All right, then. Well, that is John Hurt and the Elephant Man. I think you brought some great points up there, John. Great way to finish the video. I think we better wrap it up here now. It's been 1 hour and 30 minutes, I think. So great to have you on the channel, mate. I hope you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy the club?
I'll say thanks very much for inviting me on. I found it, to be honest, at first I was quite nervous. I'll not say I wasn't. But after a bit, you just forget about it, and like I say, and you just get on, and it's just me and you talking to each other basically. And I mean, I've taught you online for a long time, and we're quite good friends, you know. And but no, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you did, mate. We'll have to do it again sometime. I'd love to. If you're ever up for it, but we'll sort something out. Tell us what you think in the comments if you want, guys, about who your favourite roles are. Do you agree with our points on these roles? Would you have picked someone different? Is there anything we didn't say about these characters that you wish we would have said? I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, sometimes when you're on camera, stuff evades your mind a little bit, but I think we brought up some pretty good points there. So don't forget to get over to Mondo Chelloveck Movies, which will be down below. John is over there, and he's got a vast knowledge of films, lots of Blu-rays and 4Ks behind him, as you can see. Like myself, he shows a lot of them off. He's always doing Blu-ray and 4K pickups and stuff. So get over there, give him a subscribe. Thanks so much for coming on, John. Hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you all next video. See you later.